To the neighbors, Margaret Lewis was simply the elderly woman who lived quietly in the pale gray house at the end of the street. She was rarely seen outside, rarely spoke, and when she did, her voice carried a softness shaped by years of silence. Most assumed age had worn her down. No one knew that what truly exhausted her was not time, but the life she was forced to live inside, her own home. Margaret had once been the proud owner of that house. Every wall carried her memories, every corner reflected her sacrifices. After her husband Robert Lewis died suddenly 25 years ago, Margaret raised their only son, Daniel, alone. She worked endlessly, cleaning offices at night, sewing clothes during the day, and selling her jewelry piece by piece so Daniel could have a future. Robert had insisted that the house and assets remain in Margaret's name. One day, he had said, "This will protect you." Daniel grew up, became successful, and married Emily. When Emily entered the house, she seemed warm and respectful. She smiled sweetly, called Margaret Mom, and praised her cooking in front of guests. Margaret believed she had gained a daughter. The illusion didn't last long. Slowly, Emily's kindness faded. She stopped helping around the house. Responsibilities quietly shifted onto Margaret's shoulders. At first it was small things, washing dishes, folding laundry. Then it became cooking every meal, cleaning the entire house, ironing clothes, and even caring for Emily's needs like a personal maid. "You're home all day anyway," Emily would say coldly. "At least make yourself useful." Daniel never truly noticed. Or worse, he noticed and chose silence. Margaret's knees ached constantly. Her hands trembled as she worked. Yet every morning before dawn, she stood in the kitchen preparing breakfast, her fingers swollen with pain. If the coffee was too weak, Emily complained. If the floor had a single mark, Emily insulted her. Guests were served by Margaret, while Emily sat comfortably, acting as though the house ran by magic. At night, Margaret cried quietly into her pillow. She received no gratitude, no respect. She was no longer a mother in that house. She was an unpaid housekeeper. One afternoon, Margaret overheard something that changed her forever. Emily was on the phone with her own mother. "Once we get the house transferred to Daniel's name," Emily said with a laugh, "I'll send that old woman to a nursing home, or just throw her out." Margaret stood frozen behind the door, her heart pounding. That night, sleep never came. Instead, memories of Robert's voice echoed in her mind. His warnings, his foresight. For the first time in years, Margaret realized something powerful. She still owned everything. From that day forward, Margaret became quiet, not weak but watchful. She gathered every document, property deeds, bank records, investment papers, even Robert's handwritten will. She placed them carefully into an old metal trunk she had kept since her marriage. Meanwhile, Emily's behavior worsened. She accused Margaret of stealing money. She threw food into the sink and demanded it be remade. She mocked her in front of relatives. Daniel stood by helplessly, offering excuses instead of protection. "Please try to understand, Mom," he once said softly. "Emily is just stressed." That was the moment Margaret stopped begging. A week later, Emily announced she was visiting her parents for a few days. Daniel left early for work. The house fell silent. Margaret bathed, prayed quietly, and packed a small bag. She opened the metal trunk one last time, checked every document, locked it carefully, and walked out of the house. No note, no farewell. That evening, Emily returned. "Mom," she called impatiently, "where's dinner?" There was no answer. The house was spotless, but Margaret was gone. Hours passed. Panic replaced irritation. Daniel tried calling. Her phone was switched off. 3 days later, a legal notice arrived. Daniel's hands shook as he read it. The house they lived in, the bank accounts they used, the land he planned to sell, everything legally belonged to Margaret Lewis. She demanded either immediate eviction or monthly rent. Emily screamed in disbelief. "This can't be real. She doesn't even understand these things." But she did. A week later, Margaret appeared in court, calm, dignified, wearing simple gray. Her lawyer presented evidence of emotional abuse, unpaid labor, and illegal pressure to transfer property. The judge listened carefully. Daniel broke down in tears. Emily stood silent. The ruling was clear. Margaret won. She didn't seek revenge. She didn't demand punishment. She only reclaimed what had always been hers. Months later, Margaret lived peacefully in a small apartment she purchased herself. She hired help when needed and spent her evenings reading and gardening. Daniel visited once, full of regret. Emily never came. Margaret forgave, but she never returned, because some lessons are learned too late. And some unpaid housekeepers are far stronger than the people who underestimate them.